was focused in our like US based content. And then as I progress, now I do the international content. So yeah.
Thank you, Lizzie. Will, do you want to introduce yourself next?
I'd love to. It's nice to see you all today. Thanks for having me. As Hannah gave me a fantastic intro, I'm currently content marketing manager at Blueboard. We're a super fun company. I've only been here since December, but already it's been quite the ride. We're the number one all-in-one experiential rewards platform for companies. And so if you're like, what does that mean? Actually, think about it this way. You know, when you're working and your manager thinks you're doing just a really great job, and they want to send you a piece of recognition. You're like, hey, we recognize your efforts. We see you. We value your input. A lot of places send cash, gift cards. They do points-based stuff. Super forgettable. So what we do at Blueboard is we flip that script on its head, and it's all around sending an experience. So, you know, if you hit your annual sales quota, you might get a chance to do what we call the James Bond experience, where someone shows up at your house in the morning, measure you for a tux or a dress. You go skydiving, and when you land, there's an Aston Martin there in the parking lot. You get to drive it around town, and you end up at a private mixology session at the end of the day. So we give people experience, the reward of experience, and it's a really rewarding, pun intended, job. So I love it. I'm excited to talk with you all about it, but also how I got here. A lot of content marketing experience, and I'll pass it off to Addison.
I'm Addison, and I'm the associate editor at iGrad. So I guess Lizzie kind of already said what I do. I'm basically in charge of US based content. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So our next question is, why did you choose your current profession and how did USD prepare you for your career? Will, can you get us started with this one?
Absolutely. It's a tough question. You get asked a lot because, especially, you know, when I graduated in 2011, it was a very different world. I'm in content marketing now, and that career field did not like really exist when I graduated. I actually had a lot of conversations with Sister Hots after I graduated about like, what am I supposed to do with my degree? And she, along with Professor Dennis Clausen and Dr. Floyd, were really instrumental in just helping me kind of open my mind and think really outside the box around, well, you know, what can you do with it? And USD prepared me with like the skill sets necessary to succeed in a content marketing career path. So, you know, there was a lot of networking opportunities I took advantage of as an undergrad, which served me well to network into my first contributing writer gig. I learned a pretty strong work ethic. All those papers I wrote over the years and all those tests I took and everything, um, you know, crushed that first contributing gig, and I learned negotiation skills, learned how to negotiate contracts in my career, and learned really critical thinking and problem solving skills. Like no matter what any job ever threw at me, I was just able to get after it. So I don't know that USD prepared me directly for my career. I really kind of just fell into it, and it found me in a lot of ways. But without a doubt, I wouldn't have been able to succeed in my career or my field without that core skills that I learned from USD. Writing, obviously, being the most important skill I learned to do really well as an undergrad in the English department.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing. Addison, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I kind of just fell into my job. I had honestly just started my job search and wasn't really sure what area I want to get into. So, you know, I was a comm major as well. So I was thinking maybe PR, but like I wasn't really in love with it. So then Lizzie reached out to me and she told me the company that she was working for was hiring and that she loved it and that she thought I was going to be a great fit for it. So I applied and yeah, I just kind of fell into it. And I really think, you know, it's a financial literacy company, and which, you know, I'm writing and editing articles that are a lot different than the articles I was used to writing in college. But it wasn't really a difficult transition because I feel like all the professors in the English department specifically, they all have such a different style of writing that they want you to kind of adapt to. And you kind of have to become flexible. So I think that was one of like the greatest things that I could bring with me to this job, and it's really helped me with this job is it's really made me flexible with my writing, and yeah, it's been a big part of my success. So
Perfect. Lizzie, would you like to go next?
Yeah. As kind of everyone knows, Addison and I both literally just graduated a year ago. So we're not too far into our careers. But I had a really similar path. I was an English major, obviously, just did English. And I actually did an internship with Professor Randall, and I was doing PR. And I was similar to Addison, where, I just wasn't in love with it. And I wasn't writing necessarily as much as I thought I was going to. So my senior year, I got really lucky, and Kaya Hubbard, a fellow 2020 English major, reached out to me and asked if I wanted to maybe apply to be an editor for the Vista. And I hadn't really considered that at all. Like I'd been on the All Call Review and I enjoyed writing, but I didn't really think about the Vista. But getting involved in that my senior year was kind of what changed everything for me and kind of put me on the path to going into editing and content writing and that kind of thing. So yeah, it just worked out really well. And then after that, I graduated and I was looking at specifically content editing and editorial roles. So that's how I became the associate editor at iGrad. And I don't know, I would definitely say the biggest thing I got from USD that helped me for my career was just all those opportunities to be writing and publishing, and whether it was, in class, writing essays for class or homework assignments, or, working with the Alcala Review or the Vista. That was definitely what pushed me in the direction I went in, and kind of how I ended up in the job I am now.
Thank you so much for sharing. One of the common threads that I was really seeing between everything that the three of you shared was that things pop up by surprise sometimes. Life is really unexpected, and it's kind of about how you pivot when opportunities come up. So it's really cool to see how you three have made the most of those and kind of just gone for it. But at the core of that, you have those skills from USD and those relationships with both professors and other alumni and people in your network. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
That's a great way to sum it up, Hannah. Really well said. Yeah. Life comes at you fast. You got to take those opportunities when they come across your desk and run with them full force.
Yeah, thank you, Will. Our next question is, how has building a portfolio contributed to your career, or how might your current work projects contribute to showcasing your work to future clients or employers? Addison, would you like to get us started with this one?
Yeah, sure. So I feel so right now I'm a perfect example of someone who got a job with very little in their portfolio. So I was very lucky to have Lizzie, give me the recommendation, because I think that also shines light on the aspect that, there's multiple avenues that can help you to get a job. But now that I do have a job, I've realized that building a portfolio is very important, and it's something that you'll continue to contribute to. So I think, sorry, I'm like losing track of my thoughts. So I think like building a portfolio will like basically, it'll contribute to I think it's a great way to contribute to my future goals, especially what I'm writing right now for my company. As an editor, I'm able to write articles and publish them on the site. And I think it's great because, I went in with portfolio not really having anything. I only had academic writing, nothing really for like professional writing. So I think everything I'm writing right now, I could, if not all of it, then the majority of it, put it in my portfolio. And I think it will continue to show my progress in everything that I've learned at my company. Because like I said, I was an English and comm major. I didn't deal with finances and everything. So I'm really learning something new every day at my job. So I think the work I'm doing at my company now and the articles I'm writing and editing, I'll be able to put in my portfolio, and it'll be able to not, I can say that I learned so much, but it'll be able to show that I'm learning so much. So I think that's like the best part about it.
Yeah, thank you, Addison. Taking all of those skills and kind of centralizing it in one place is really helpful. Thank you. How about we hear from Lizzie next?
Yeah, so it's funny because I basically went through the same hiring process as Addison, but just before her. But something that both of our supervisor now actually mentioned to me when I was hired was she did talk about my portfolio and mentioned that she like enjoyed the variety of the work in it. So I definitely think just taking the time and being thoughtful with what you're going to put in a portfolio was really kind of what contributed to me being able to like find a job and start in this career path. And I personally had no idea where to start. I remember senior year, I went to Sue's office and was like, I know I need a portfolio, but I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what it means. Like, should I put an essay I submitted in? Should I put, the Instagram caption I wrote for the PR firm I worked for? Like, what goes in a portfolio? And again, I was really lucky. It's something we've talked about a lot, but I was able to rely on another alumni, and I reached out to her, a girl who was a year older, an English major, and she was really helpful, was able to guide me. And it just kind of taking whatever you have, because like obviously any English major, we're all in different stages. Some people are publishing stuff in journals, or some people are publishing stuff in the Vista, or some people are putting things in the I'll Call Review, or some people aren't doing any of that, but you still have enough writing that you can kind of put that all in one place. And it's just making sure you take the time to, go through whatever it is you have and see what you like the most and what you feel is the best representation of you as a writer, and putting that all together in one place. It's a good way to really demonstrate your skill set to a future employer. So I think, I'm really glad. I look back now, I'm really glad that I took that time senior year. I think I did it in the spring. Like, it wasn't something I worked on for like a year or something, but I just took a week and I went through everything I had from all the different things I'd been involved in, and kind of compiled it into one place and really put it all together. And that was a great way for me to be able to show a future employer, what it is I'd been doing for the past 4 years and what it was I could offer to them. So having a good portfolio, I found was really key to kind of my job hunt success.
Yeah, just to like build off that too. I mean, I realized I learned it the hard way slightly, but there's like a misconception that your portfolio has to be this flawless piece of work that's
Mhm.
so polished and perfect, but it really doesn't at all. It has to be well presented, obviously, but you really just have to build it. And I think Lizzie, you kind of nailed it. Like, it doesn't have to take a year, get it going. I'm a big fan of that feedback loop. Rapidly design something, send it out, get some feedback, redesign it. So my portfolio it's an ever growing document. I think yours will be the same. Um, as your career grows, it's going to grow with you. You have to be updating it constantly. You have to be changing stuff out, putting your hot new stuff in. You might have a piece in there that you really like, but if you're looking back at your content's performance, like nobody else likes it, you might want to switch it out for something that's just it's going to be really popular with an audience. But yeah, the portfolio is the embodiment of that show versus tell mindset that any creative writer is, very familiar with, or any writer in general, I guess. I could tell you all day how good of a writer I am, but I'd rather just show you what does it look like. Then you can read yourself. So I think a big misconception too is that it's a designer's thing, only like a graphic designer or an artist is really only people who need a portfolio. But I think even no matter what you're doing, a portfolio is a good tool to have in your bench, even if you're a business major or you're an engineer. I mean, it doesn't matter if you don't have to be a writer or a creative to have a portfolio. Think of it more of just like a visual representation of your resume. I think that helps a lot. What have you worked on? Even if it's just, you know, you've done some, like if you're an engineer, you've got photos of a project you work on, and you just put a little description up there. If you're a social media coordinator, put some of your screenshots of posts up there. If you're a business client, put some case studies in there. It doesn't matter. Just put something together. It's the new way that business works now these days. It gets you interviews, gets you jobs, get your foot in the door. It's a great way to stand out from the crowd. So definitely take advantage of it. And I think we're going to get into it in a little bit, but I've got my portfolio. I'm happy to show you. I'll walk you through some of it today. You can see what it looks like too. But yeah.
Thank you everyone for sharing. It's really cool to see how each of your portfolios has really represented who you are, what you've been learning, and how you've been growing. And I know that that's just going to continue to grow throughout the years in your future careers. Our next question is, please describe one item in your portfolio explaining how you developed it and why you think it showcases your knowledge, skills, or talents. Lizzie, can you start us off with this one?
Yeah, so let me see. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay. So this is my portfolio personally, and I know it's kind of good because Will is going to be able to show you. I believe he has a website, which is one route you can go, and it's kind of where I hope to get my portfolio eventually, ideally once I have enough work. But this was kind of what I was working with at the end of my senior year. Um, got a cover page, and it's really good to have a table of contents. I basically is kind of what I was told, just because depending on what kind of job you're applying to, they can kind of, you know, if I had been applying to a PR job or a copywriting job, they would be able to see like the social copy I'd written or examples of that. Whereas if I'm applying to like a more content based job, they can see some of my longer pieces. And then I included my resume but the one piece of my portfolio that I like to highlight was an article I did for the Vista. It was actually on a fellow senior, which was nice. But I loved the way my like USD Vista articles looked in my portfolio because everything about this page was stuff I'd done myself. I did the InDesign layout and I sourced the photos, I wrote the text, and I just felt like it was a really good way. I have a few. This was a concert piece I wrote as well, but I just really enjoyed having kind of a piece of work that A looks good because it's formatted. It was a Vista article, but B is also just all of my work. I did every part of it, and if an employer asked about it, I kind of have a story, and it was a way for me to show that I had skills beyond just writing. I was able to do design things, I was able to do writing things, and yeah, that was my favorite thing. But obviously, like I said before, not everyone has that. I worked in the Vista, and it was great because when it came time to make a portfolio, I had a lot of examples to add. But this is my little shameless plug for the USD Vista. If anyone needs, if you want to be published or you want something great for your portfolio, they always love when people write articles. So I would highly recommend, wherever you are in your portfolio, if that's something you're interested in, you're looking for something like this that you can put in there, I definitely recommend, reaching out and trying to get your stuff published or trying to, get involved in the Vista in any way you can, or just any kind of written organization. Because it's nice to have, when you go to make the portfolio, it's nice to have something like this where you can say, like, not only is this my writing, it's also my writing kind of formatted in a really nice way that, you know, looks really visibly appealing to an employer potentially. And it looks, in my opinion, it looks really professional. But yeah, I would say this is probably my favorite part of my portfolio. And then just to quickly scan through the rest of it, I also included marketing copy I had done, infographics. That was something personally, like my employer pointed out, because I made infographics for my company now. So she liked seeing that. And, I did web design, like a website design, and then social media text where captions I wrote. And then I included academic text as well. And yeah, so that is my portfolio. I got really lucky because someone did great graphic design and I got to put this in my portfolio, and it looks really nice, but I did not do the graphic design on that one. I just did the writing.
Thank you, Lizzie. Your portfolio looks beautiful. And I'm also really happy to hear that the USD Vista was such a positive experience. I hear a lot of people gaining really valuable skills and insights from working there.
Yeah, highly recommend it to anyone who wants to get involved. They're wonderful and they're always looking for more writers, and I miss my days at the Vista.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Let's go to Will next.
Sure. I also wrote for the Vista too, and it was a blast. I did I did the arts and culture stuff. I did like album reviews, and
Yeah, that's what I did arts and culture. So that was a really nice thing too. I got to go to concerts and that kind of thing. It was really fun.
And the coolest part is, like, it's a real newsroom. So you like get a good experience for what does it look like to actually work in a fast-paced editorial environment. Recommend highly. All right, so I'll show you my portfolio. It's as I mentioned earlier, it's a living document. This is my website. I turned it all into a website about 4 years ago. You should have seen V1 of the website. It was trash. It was terrible. It was clunky. It was too much copy. So I redid it, but from square one, and just my URL. And this is my first point of the portfolio: is personality. Show who you are. It's showing your work as much as like who's the spirit of the person I'm speaking to right now. So I chose a vanity URL, willschmidt.rocks. Some people love it, some people hate it, but I'm always a big fan of the fact that, like, I'd rather have somebody hate it or love it than be neutral. Better to have somebody feel something. And then I got the big photo here. This is a fun photo. It's not professional in any capacity. My dad hates it. He thinks it's like never going to get me in the door with people, but most places I've showed my website actually really love it. I just have a quick blur. Who am I? Content strategy, digital marketing, social media management, so much more. Let's bring your vision to life. Message me. I recommend to keep your like social media stuff. If you're going to include in your portfolio, do LinkedIn. I wouldn't mess with anything else. LinkedIn's really the only place where anything gets done these days. And then this is my actual portfolio page. I spoke with a graphic designer who I was good friends with, and I modeled after her page, and she helped me get set up with some stuff. But the important part of the portfolio is that you don't showcase everything. You showcase what is the most important. And that, I think, to Lizzie's point earlier, is it's really like you kind of like want to tailor it for the job you're going after. So that's why I like a website, because I can go into Squarespace in the back end and I can just turn the whole page off, or I have other pages that are published, but they're just not showing right now. So you can quick switch stuff out if you want to cater something. Like if I'm going for a social media job, I'm going to have a lot of my social media stuff up here. Like currently I've got blogs, videos, case studies, and lead generation assets. This was actually my portfolio page that I sent for Blueboard during my interview process for content marketing manager. So these are just stock photos, by the way, that I got from those free sites. You can use Unsplash or Pexels. They're totally royalty free. Like you can use them in anything you want. And they're nice. So within each section, and this is where I had some fun with it. My designer was like, you got to make it like interactive. So I got a Canva subscription, and I'm not a designer like at all. I don't know anything about graphic design except, like I can use some minor tools, but these are all my blog posts, a lot of stuff, a lot of my work that I was doing with Classy, which is my content strategy role I was in for about 4.5 years. So these are like some of my most popular blog posts. They're all like really nonprofit themed, because we were a SaaS company, did fundraising software for nonprofits, but they're all clickable images. So it's like, oh, I like that one. And you click out to it and it just takes you right to the actual blog post itself. Another benefit of the website, I think, is being able to direct link to your content. And it's got all this stuff there. And then it's good conversation starters, and you can reference stuff in your interview, like, oh, my portfolio, the Creative Campaigns blog. Ooh, broken link. See, I'm catching myself. Anyway, so that was one page blog post. The videos page is fun. This was a really rare opportunity I had at Classy, actually. Video marketing was something we really wanted to double down on. They had never really done it before. And for some reason, I got it. I was the guy that they wanted to be on camera for all this stuff. So I did a bunch of videos. There's some fun ones. There's some serious ones. There's one promoting downloadable assets for the company. There's product voiceovers, event voiceovers, all kinds of stuff. Any creative work like you have like this, interactive media, great pieces for portfolios. The case studies, this is much more on the businessy side of things. This stuff driving hard ROI metrics for the business, talking about the success of our customers, linking directly to the actual thing so they can see, here's a bunch of testimonials. Like it's short. I mean, this is a page. This is one page of a PDF, but it's these case studies that honestly, these businessy ones, they want to see the diversity of content across fun, top level, traffic driving, creative, and then what's going to get my business results. So they want to see that. You got to have that rounded view in your portfolio. And then lead generation, this is the last one, where these were all downloadable guides and ebooks that we did at Classy, which were responsible for driving millions of dollars in pipeline for the business. So it's kind of a two-parter here. We got blogs, videos, top funnel, creative, fun, case studies, lead generation, more bottom funnel. And by funnel, I mean where somebody is in the buyer process in terms of they just met our brand or they're willing to buy our software. There's a lot of steps that come in between that. So it's giving a really rounded view of where somebody or of what I can produce for a business. And this is really, I think, the value of the portfolio is like, you're going to pay me potentially like $90,000 a year to run your content engine. So I need to prove to you right now that I'm going to bring you over $90,000 worth of business within my first year of being there. So you've got to have this rounded view. And these are all your conversation starters, top funnel traffic. Well, why is that relevant to the business? We're going to get more people on the site. We're going to get your SEO rankings up. Your brand is going to blow up. People are going to see you all over the place. Pushing people down the funnel. Case studies. We're enticing new deals with these case studies. We're showing people how the product works so that they can see other examples and they can come in and buy the software. That's money in the bank right there. These lead generation assets, these are not decision pieces of content. Somebody's not going to read this and want to buy the software potentially, but they're going to read this and it's going to up their game. And we're going to capture all the information that they have, their email, their name, their company size. We're going to capture all of that as they download this asset. And then we're going to turn them into, we're going to funnel that into our email nurture cycle. And we're going to push them to buy the software over the next couple of months. So I like to have this whole rounded view. That's kind of my philosophy. And again, it took me about 4 years to get here. Didn't happen overnight. Like I said, just get something up, even if it's just one page. This was initially my portfolio, was just my resume. It was just this. And this is just a PDF. My resume I designed in Canva and uploaded it to my site. It's just its own page. It's out of date at this point, but have some fun with it. Put a little color into it. I think Lizzie, your portfolio was great too. Like those graphic design moments. Anywhere you can put a little bit of a design element in, run with it, because it also shows in their skill set. Like I am a creative, and I know how to either work well with other teams. I had somebody design this with me. I know how to do this myself. I have the initiative to learn how to get a design skill set and make this stuff. Or whatever. It's just a great showcase of who you are and the skills in your collaboration with other people. So that's a brief look at my portfolio. I'll pass it over to Addison.
So as I said earlier, I'm kind of learning about portfolios along with all of you. The only item in my portfolio is like this activity guide that I put together for my independent study with the comm department last summer. So my independent study was basically researching the transition from in-person learning to remote learning and adapting Dr. Chung's interpersonal communication class to fit that. And so the piece of writing is basically just guidelines for a digital detox where students have to give up their technology for 5 days. But obviously with the pandemic, things changed and it became almost impossible to not be on technology because you needed it for school. So the piece of writing I put in my portfolio was basically an updated guide for her digital detox. And I chose it because it included basically every aspect of my independent study. So it included research on the pandemic and how it affects learning, opinions. I interviewed other students who had taken her class and who had, experienced lockdown and what it was like to do online learning and like what they thought would be good to change, would be good to keep. And then my own personal perspective, because I also took her class in 2018. So it kind of encompassed everything I'd spent basically 2 months doing. And I also chose it because researching COVID-19 was like a big part, like it was part of the criteria for the job I was applying to. So obviously looking back now, I probably would have put a little bit more effort into it and made it all pretty, but I just simply sent in a PDF of it. So, I'm still in the process of building my portfolio, but I guess I'm a perfect example of someone who utilized, the limited resources I had. I was very lucky to have my independent study. I didn't realize how much it would help me because Dr. Chung also acted as she was my reference for my job as well. So, you don't have to have all these experiences. Like, I didn't work at the Vista or anything. So I was kind of coming from a place of not a lot of work to show. So I think it was cool to see that I could utilize something from school that I wouldn't have thought I could otherwise. So, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't pretty. I still have a lot of work to do with my portfolio, but I guess I'm just proof that, you can still get a job without making it so perfect. I mean, I definitely think it helps, and that's how I'm going to eventually have mine look. But I think I'm that example of someone who didn't have it all together, but was still able to get an amazing job and utilize my relationship with other USD students to help me get the job. So, yeah.
That's a really good point. Like grain of salt, I'm 32 years old, so I've been doing this for like a while. But Addison, I think you're like right on the money, and your approach is so spot on for somebody who's just right out of college. You've got the right mindset, and anybody who's got questions around that and you're looking to get started, like that's a great framework to use as you get going. So respect to you. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for sharing. It's really neat to see the way that all three of you have leaned on those resources and those relationships to really represent yourself in such a rounded way, as Will said. So thank you. Our next question is, what part does technology play in planning, developing, or delivering your portfolio content? Will, I know you kind of talked about some of the technology aspect and your creativity and the website designing. Um, would you like to add a little bit more to this question in terms of technology?
Yeah, I just think that, I mean, you saw my portfolio, but we have a lot available to us, and it's foolish to not take advantage of it. Whether you're compiling a PDF, doing a website, whatever, take advantage of what's in front of you. And it's confusing at times. Like, you're gonna have to learn new things. I don't understand how to make a website. I don't understand Squarespace at all. But you take a couple months and just learn it. Take like a course online. It's a great way to actually up your skill sets, because newsflash, any job you get, you're going to be working with the same tech stack in anything you go into. And the more you can bump up your skill sets on the front end to show that, hey, I know how to make a website. Oh, great, because this job you're actually going to have to manage our website. Oh, okay, I'm familiar with that. You can see I built this whole website. Like, you see, we're like, there's a whole connection there. So the technology that you use to build your portfolio, to promote your portfolio, there's going to be a lot of crossover in the job you're ultimately going to get with that portfolio. So they're great. That's all I'll add on that front, but I can pass it back for anybody else who wants to add some color.
Yeah, this is just a little logistical thing. I had the hardest time figuring out how to put together a portfolio, because I knew I wasn't going to do the website route, just because I was like, I don't have enough stuff to make a website. And just a tip for anyone in case you're trying to figure out how to put together a portfolio, I put everything to PowerPoint and exported it into a PDF. It was like just rocket science. I was like mind blown by the whole thing. I guess it's kind of not that hard. I'm not very tech savvy, but it was really, really helpful. So if you have it, especially if you have things that are different sizes or kind of different formats, putting it all, making it into a PDF after that's how I would recommend making it if you're deciding to go kind of that route. But that's pretty much all I have to add with technology and the portfolios and how they work together.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Addison, do you have anything that you'd like to share about your experience with the technology in the portfolio?
Like I said, my journey is just beginning with the portfolio, just like probably a lot of students. So I'd say Will and Lizzie, they said everything I could say.
I'll also have one more quick thing too. This is your portfolio is your business card in a lot of ways. Like, business cards aren't a thing anymore, that was weird for me, because when I came out of college, they were, and my dad was like, "You gotta get business cards." And I got my first job. He's like, "Are they going to get you business cards?" And I'm like, "No, Dad. Like, it's not environmentally friendly to just print out a bunch of pieces of paper anymore. Like, you gotta get with it, Dad. You got to adapt." But your portfolio is your business card. So um, think of it that way, and put all the same information you put on a card, just put it on your portfolio. And yeah, and that's the only last thing I would add about the portfolio, and kind of how it could help for you to think about it as you create your own.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think that's really great advice. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. What is the most challenging aspect of the work that you do? And what is the most rewarding aspect? Addison, would you like to start us off with this one?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, English and comm major, working at a company that deals with financial literacy. So, I don't have a background in any of that, any business or anything like that. So, on a daily basis, I'm dealing with content or information that, I'm not an expert on. So I feel like that it can be kind of challenging, because you're like, oh, this sounds weird, but like I can't change it, because if I change it, that might not be like the intended meaning of the sentence. So it's a little challenging, but on the other side, it's also the most rewarding aspect, because I am learning so much. And I'm the type of person who I love school. Like, I loved learning. And the fact that I found a job, and Lizzie helped me find a job, that I'm learning something every day. And it's helping grow my expertise in a lot of areas. I just think it's amazing. So yeah, it's both, it's challenging, but also very rewarding.
Yeah, it's definitely been a learning curve for both of us, as we said, as English majors, and Addison was also comm, but neither of us were people in finance at all. And now it's, doing things like how to save for your child's education, what's the best savings account return, whatever, for you to choose for your personal financial situation. And there's a lot of terminology that we didn't know, and it's great to learn it. But my role specifically, because I am kind of on our international finance side, I actually work with a team of 30 something freelancers from 22 different countries. So it's been super exciting. I've kind of loved it, but I think one of the most challenging aspects for me also, in addition to, trying to get so familiar with all of this finance lingo and concepts, is now I'm trying to get familiar with these financial concepts in 22 different countries on top of just the US. So, and writing about it and figuring out the best way to, discuss those things, because there's different formats and there's different ways you refer to things based on a different country. And so that's been kind of a learning curve for me in my job, because it's not the straightforward editing anymore, because there's certain things I would change, because that's the style of the way we do things in the US. And I can't change it because, that's the style of the way things they do it in India. So it's kind of been a very interesting challenge navigating editing in that kind of world. But something that's been really rewarding is seeing how much my work has grown, because I've had the opportunity to write a lot and I've had the opportunity to also edit a lot. And I definitely think, like Addison said, it's really nice to be in a role where you're learning and you're growing. And I think that's the exciting part about writing and about being an English major is, you have this fundamental skill set, but it's nice because you're always expanding upon that. And, no matter what job you go into and what you're working for, what company you're creating content for, you end up learning so much because you can use your writing skills and take it in so many different directions. So I now am really familiar with a lot of things, like, how they save for retirement in India and how they save for retirement in Bulgaria. I'm now extremely familiar with that. And I never thought I would be able to say that, but I can. So it's definitely been really rewarding to see that, like, I just got this fundamental skill set at USD and now it's kind of taken me in a whole different direction. So that's kind of what's been challenging and rewarding, I think, for both of us, for Addison and I, in our jobs.
That's cool. And it actually goes back to like that one of the early questions, like how does USD prepare you? And those deep research skills, that you need that, because you're right. And I like to say it. I don't know if my coworkers actually like it or think it's stupid, but I like it. And I say, every time I get a chance to learn something new, I say every day is a school day. And that's my attitude going into that stuff, because you both are so right. Like there are so many times where someone's like, we need you to write about this. You're like, I don't know what this is. Now I have to go like turn around a piece of content for an audience of people. Like I have to be the expert on this. When I started at Classy, I knew nothing about the nonprofit sector, but right now I'm an expert about nonprofit fundraising, which is hilarious because I'm probably never going to work in a nonprofit, but you do learn a lot. I'll flip the script a little bit. What's the most challenging aspect of the work I do? There's a lot of challenging elements, but I like a good challenge. So that's definitely the mindset you need to have to succeed in content, I think, in content marketing or any aggressive marketing career. But for me, it's finding time to write, because that's probably 60% of my job description right now is to actually create the content. And, if you put me in a room by myself with a computer and say, hey, we need 5,000 words on this topic, I can give it to you in probably 2 hours. But especially when we were in the office, if you put me in an office and I was sitting right next to the sales team and you put me next to the sales team who are on the phones all day, they're smashing the gong every time they close a deal, and you tell me we need you to write 5,000 words, like it's going to take me 8 hours. But the problem, it's a full work day. But the problem is, like, you don't have a full work day to do. You have maybe 3 hours in between meetings, in between, group brainstorms, whatever. The balance is definitely the most challenging aspect of my work. It's been that way for about 7 years now. It's probably going to be that way till I retire. But you gotta you've got to learn how to stick up for yourself and fight for your own time. You've got to learn how to manage your time really well and find those moments where you can shut everything off and go into a dark hole and write for like 2 hours. But the good news is, like, nobody's going to try to stop you from doing that. Everybody's all about it because you're not the only person with that predicament. Everybody in your team is going to have that same feeling. So that's definitely the most challenging aspect of it, I do from like an operational perspective. Um, the most rewarding aspect is when you do write something or when you create whatever you're creating and you launch it to the public and it lands and it hits and you break records or you drive however many $1 million worth of pipeline off of one piece of content, or you book, you book like 50 meetings off of one webinar that took you 30 minutes to plan. I mean, those business, for me at least, the business impact, when you have something that you work on and it has a solid business impact, that's the most rewarding part, because it's bigger than you at that point. It's like, and it's cool, I think, from a content perspective, to say, I wrote a blog post and this is how it impacted everybody's job in a positive way at this company. And that's hard to quantify in a lot of ways. People, you'll probably hear a lot if you're in the content world, like, what's your ROI as a writer, as a contributor to my website, as a copywriter, like, how do I justify paying you more money? Well, those rewarding moments when you can come back to them with like hard business metrics and say, this is my ROI, this is the impact I have, but this is also like the educational impact I have on our audience. And I taught, when I was at Classy, that was our charge on the blog, was actionable, informative content. We want to write stuff for nonprofit professionals that they can read today, turn around and implement tomorrow at their job. So when you write a piece of content and it's successful on like the lead gen business metrics front, that's great. But when you have that double whammy of, then you get people reaching out to you, they find your email somehow and they write you a personal email, like, this is the most impactful piece of content I've ever read about this topic. You're the best. Thank you so much. You've saved my life. I mean, there's nothing better than that. It's so cool. And I love that part of my job. And I get a lot of opportunities to do that. And I think that really spans across a lot of career paths. Wherever you go, there's always going to be an opportunity to impact other people with your work. And that's something that you don't really learn at college. I don't know how you could teach that, but as you kind of get your feet wet in a career path and you realize, like, this is more than just a job. This is more than me just showing up every day and doing something. This is me having an impact and making a difference, whatever that difference is. That's so cool. I love that.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I'm really encouraged hearing the ways that you've overcome some of those challenges in your work, but also really happy to hear that there have been those rewarding experiences as well that really stick with you. This next question is more directed towards Will, because I know we got to talk a little bit before the panel started, and we had some interesting conversation about this one. But how do you or your company define success?
This is a tricky question, and really in the weeds, but kind of to recap a lot of what I've been mentioning today, let's start with, how does a company define success? And for me, it's, from my specific role as content marketing manager, we define success as high page views, low bounce rates. And a bounce rate is when somebody comes into your website and if they come into your website and they leave immediately, you're going to get a high bounce rate. If they come into your website and they click through to other pages on your site and they start engaging with your content across all of your site, you're going to get a low bounce rate. So it's like golf. You want a low bounce rate. Low bounce rate means you're winning. What is our SEO positioning? Search engine optimization. What's our organic search traffic? That's a huge play for companies, because you can pay for it, but if you can save the company $50,000 in paid spend and drive organic traffic, that's what they want. It's good for everybody, and you can take that 50K and reinvest it into potential hire a new writer for your department. So, and then conversions, AKA somebody coming into our site, they land on a landing page where they could download a guide or an ebook or register for a webinar. And what's the percentage of people landing on that page who are actually filling out that form to achieve that intended goal? So those are kind of like our really nitty gritty metrics for success. On a broader scale, I've worked with mostly startups and kind of the B2B, business to business sales side of things, software companies for the most part. And it's really just like, how much software can we sell? Everything is really tied to a annual quota for dollars. So I think, whether it's like we're trying to drive $15 million in sales this quarter, how are we going to hit that? And then it's an interesting backwards pedal from there, where it's like, okay, we have 15 million. Well, marketing's responsible for 7.5 million of that. Sales responsible for 7.5. And how do we ladder all that up to the 7.5? What am I doing? How is me writing a blog going to help contribute to that 7.5 million? So that's kind of the business side of things. On the personal side of things, how do I define success? This is not a hard metric to track, but it's really like, it's deadlines. Deadlines are really weird in the working world. Sometimes they're really set in stone. Sometimes they're really flexible. And there are a lot of times where, as a team, stuff gets pushed and it gets pushed and it gets pushed. and stuff gets deprioritized because, oh, we've got this big hot event we have to host or run now. And you're going to have, I have like 50,000 projects I'm working on at once. So if I have to push one down the pipeline, but it's important to me on a personal level, or it's tied to my personal goals I've set for the quarter, I can't just forget about it. I got to do it. So there's a lot of those like personal behind the scene metrics that define success in terms of hitting deadlines, completing projects. A lot of places like to see, your self-starter initiative. So if you come to the table with a great idea, like when COVID hit at Classy, we Giving Tuesday. I don't know if you're all familiar with Giving Tuesday, but it's like the biggest day for nonprofits right after Cyber Monday and Black Friday, and it's like everybody should donate today. It's our biggest day for revenue on the platform. Like we would transact like over $20 million. It's huge. It was really big for us. But with COVID, like nobody knew it was going to happen because like, is everybody going to still donate with the same enthusiasm? Do they even want to give their money? Do they have money to give to us? They just lose their job. So I came to the table. I was like, let's do this video. I want to get a representative from the Giving Tuesday organization and a couple other thought leaders in the space. Let's do a panel like this and we'll record it. And it's like, what's going to change this year for Giving Tuesday and COVID-19? Well, it was a great idea. Everybody's like, yeah, let's do it. But here's the thing. Now that's my responsibility. I have to push that forward. And if I don't do any work on it, it's not going to get done. And then I come back to the table a month later, like, oh, I didn't get it done. Like, well, I thought that was a great idea. Why didn't you push that forward? So you have a lot of these personal deadlines and these personal passion projects you want to do. And anybody can come to the table with a great idea, but how do you execute upon that idea? How are you pushing it to the finish line? And that is like deeply personal at the end of the day. And for me, that's a huge metric of success. If I can bring something new and do something crazy cool that way, that's going to make an impact and drive it from top to bottom, like lead and get other functional members of our team to come in and help. That's success right there. So it's really kind of the epitome of like a dream big, execute smart kind of a mindset. That's my personal success metric, I guess. I hope that answers the question. I hope I'm not just rambling here.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I think that was really great insight. Lizzie, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, something you mentioned earlier, I think it was in the your response to maybe the other question, the last question, but that kind of reminded me of the fact that, there is a tangible, real worth to content and to writing. And I feel like that was a big measure of success for me because, I'm not sure if any fellow English majors have had a similar experience, but you say you're majoring in English, and a lot of people are kind of like, oh, what are you going to do with that? Like, do you want to go to grad school? Do you want to be a writer? And it's sometimes doesn't sound like maybe the most practical major, whatever that means. But I think a huge thing that you don't learn in college and you don't realize until you're in the business world, but there is so much success to be had for writers and for people with that skill set. Like writing is such an important skill. And if you can produce really great content, whether it's in a copywriting function or in a content writing function or as an editor, that's a really tangible, marketable, profitable skill because you can make a company you're working for a lot of money. Like I got promoted to be the content editor, as I mentioned, for the international side, which has been like kind of a recent expansion for my company. And through my work, like through the creation of localized content in all these different countries, we've basically like been able to expand into this pretty profitable major business venture. And it all kind of comes down to like, I was able to, edit those articles and find those freelancers and manage those deadlines. And I think success, it doesn't have to be so I feel like there's such a, classic idea of what success is and what success in your career should look like and what that means for you. And I think taking different paths to that and allowing yourself to kind of explore the different ways to be successful is really important because you have a lot of skills that can bring you to success, even if maybe you don't think they're going to bring you there. That was kind of a confusing way to put it, but if anyone asks you why you're an English major and you're not sure, you can tell them like there's a big need for people like that out there. And I feel like I've been able to find more success in my career than I originally thought because I wasn't on a set path. And now I've realized like I do actually have those skills and there's a lot of success out there to be had for people who kind of are outside that realm of traditional career paths. So I think that's really important to remember. And I wish someone had told me that while I was still in school, that there's a lot of different ways you can go and you can be really successful professionally as an English major.
Really well said. Thank you. Alrighty, so we have one more question before we wrap up and open up the floor to the audience for questions. What advice do you have for current students at USD on building a portfolio or on preparing for life after graduation? I know we've kind of already touched on bits and pieces of this question throughout, but do you have any final thoughts or last words that you'd like to leave everyone with regarding these things? Why don't we start with Addison?
I feel like it kind of goes back to what Lizzie said. Going into your career, you know, I feel like when I was at USC, I was surrounded by a ton of people who knew exactly. Sorry, my dog's barking if you can hear it. Knew exactly what they wanted to do. Like they're like, oh yeah, I'm getting an internship here, and then I'm going to get a job at that place I'm getting the internship. And you know, I was one of those people who, you know, I was English comm. I could do something with one or something with the other. They kind of combine realistically. So I think it's important not to like set limits for yourself and like don't put yourself in a box comparing yourself to what other people are doing because it's only going to hold you back. I really think it's important to, you know, believe in yourself and believe in what you can do and utilize resources that you have. Like I use Dr. Chung as my reference. Never thought I was going to be able to do that. Lizzie helped me get the job. She's a peer, you know. She had just graduated too. So it's, you know, don't always look for be open to change and like you don't have to go the conventional way to get a job. Sometimes the perfect job will find you and sometimes it'll be a tough journey but worth it in the end. So I really think it's just about being open and not stressing out about it too much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Addison. That's great advice. How about we go to Will next?
Yes, I try to really reduce this to like one piece of advice is a lot, but I think the biggest one that was a big wake up call for me is you have to prepare yourself for conversations at a company when you want to advance your career, um, especially in the content world or in a marketing role. Get ready for conversations that sound like when you say, I'd like to get a promotion, say, we want you to design your own career path, or we don't really have a linear trajectory for your career path or your skill set. And you're like, well, what the hell does that mean? And you're like, exactly, like nobody knows. And when I was at Classy, I started as an associate content writer. And when I was working to get a promotion, those were the answers I got. And AKA what that's saying is the company is saying like we don't really know what to do with your role. We don't know how to advance your role. So we're going to let you decide. And it's kind of like it's frustrating on one level because you want that same progression that someone on the sales side is going to have. Where like I go from an SDR to an account executive to a sales manager to a department manager. You know, like it's not like that. And you want that. And so it's frustrating because the company won't give it to you. But it's also frustrating because it's overwhelming. Like I don't know where to take my career. So anticipate that conversation and think about how are you. It is kind of cool because they're basically saying create your own job, do whatever you want in that capacity. And when I was there, you know, they kept telling me this, and I said, all right, well, I want to be a content strategist. And they said, well, what is that? We don't know what that is. We've never heard of that before. And I said, okay, well, here's what it is. And I came and you make a pitch, you got to sell it. You got to sell it to your department manager, who's got to then take all your materials and sell it up to the board ultimately to approve the position. I was lucky and got in with our chief marketing officer. I got some FaceTime with her and I had 15 minutes and I said, here's what I want to do. Here's how it helps the company. And this is me creating my own career path here at Classy. And they said, all right. At the end of the day, it was essentially the exact same job duties with a couple extra responsibilities. But the title upgrade was huge because if you're not going to stay at the same company forever. So if you're looking to eventually move, you're going to want to, you're going to need to show that you had some kind of a growth trajectory at your current company. And nobody's going to, I can go get another job as an associate content writer, but that's an entry level position. And that's not what I want. I don't want to spend 4 years working at a place only to go back to entry level at another place. So the content strategist play was really strategic because, you know, I did a lot of research and a content strategist is like a very niche career. And it actually, considerably more money than a content writer or a copywriter on the whole, even though the job is essentially the exact same thing. So I didn't get much, I didn't get really any money at all, actually, when I got that promotion, but I got the title and I spent 2 years in that role. And I took every opportunity I could to kind of create that career path as I went. And it ultimately led me to a content marketing manager where I'm now running an entire department. So you'll get there, but prepare for those conversations where people don't know what to do with you. So you got to show them what you want them to do with you and take charge. You got to take charge.
Thanks for sharing, Will. Lizzie, would you like to wrap us up?
Yeah, ooh, a lot of pressure. I'm trying to think because I actually had the really unique experience of 3 months after I started working, I was involved in the hiring process to hire my replacement. And that was definitely a wild experience. I would definitely say for any students applying, my biggest thing is, tailor what you're giving to a company, make sure you're tailoring it to that role because something I noticed a lot for our role, like obviously it's a content editing and writing role, but it's within the financial literacy realm, and we were getting a lot of creative writing pieces or that kind of thing where it's a demonstration of your skill set, and if that's all you have, like by all means go for it. It's still worth it. But if you are choosing between your favorite creative writing piece and an academic article you did, say if it was for the same role that I'm talking about, say you did an article about that had something to do with finances and your favorite creative writing piece, I would pick something more academic and make sure you're just thinking about, what is the employer looking for and how can I tailor my portfolio, tailor my work, tailor my examples to what they are looking for specifically. Because once you're in the role, like Will was saying, you can take it in a lot of different ways, especially in this career field. And you can kind of say, maybe you get into a position and you're like, by the way, I'm actually a huge creative writer and I love to like have the flexibility to create content in the way I want to. And that's something that's great once you're hired on. But when you're in the application process, make sure you're streamlining what you're giving them. And if they're asking for X, Y, and Z, make sure you're giving them X, Y, and Z. And make sure you're flexible, I think also is the biggest thing. I didn't think I ever wanted to go into anything that had anything to do with finances. Like I am I wouldn't say I'm financially illiterate, especially now, but I was hardly, up to date on what exactly a Roth IRA was and all these different things. And I didn't think that interested me necessarily. But I just kept my options open and I stayed really flexible and I applied to these jobs because it was May of COVID and I thought I wasn't going to get a job anyway because, I was an English major graduating in a global pandemic. So kind of the perfect storm. But I still also was like, maybe I will enjoy this. And it's like Addison and I both said, we're both in roles where we weren't necessarily familiar with the content we're writing about and we ended up loving it. So making sure you're flexible while also making sure you're tailoring to what an employer is looking for, I think is a great strategy going into the application process. And above all, it's kind of what I was saying before. You just really have to be confident in the skill set you possess. And that's kind of what does it all. You need to make sure if your employer is looking for this and maybe you don't really, that's not exactly what you did in college. I was the arts and culture editor. I was editing very specific, like band openings and concerts and that kind of thing. But I was able to say, I have those editorial skills that I can implement into any field. It doesn't have to be, I'm not just in this one realm. So making sure you're confident in that, like maybe your experience doesn't line up exactly, but presenting yourself in a way where you're like, this is the experience I've had. And I'm confident that like I can do it for your company, whatever your company needs me to do. That's kind of what's really important additionally. But yeah, I think as an English major, as any other kind of major, just you have the skills. USD gives you great skills, and there's always peers and teachers and professors and faculty members, like just so many people you can reach out to, and really relying on that. And it's a daunting process going into the application world and thinking about what you want to be when you grow up, and it's kind of stressful and you might not know, and especially if you don't have a set career path. But there's a lot of amazing opportunities out there that you like don't even know about yet. So just being open to all of that, it's just really helpful to keep your path wide open and just kind of take things as they come.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder. Thank you for sharing that, Lizzie. So that concludes the end of our panel discussion. Let's give a round of applause to our alumni panelists. Thank you so much for being with us today, sharing all of your insights and your experiences. We loved getting to hear about all of the great things you've been working on and are so excited to see where you continue to go in life. Now we're gonna kind of flip-flop and open the floor up to the audience for questions. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself. You can toss something into the chat.
Yeah, I had a question. I was wondering, what is the most stressful deadline that you had and how did you deal with it?
I'll let one of you two take it first if you'd like.
Okay, I had a really stressful, this was literally February 1st. I had to hire freelancers from, like I said, I had to hire freelancers from 22 different countries, have them all on a schedule. They had to like read and audit 200 plus pieces of financial content. Then I had to like take their comments, basically rework half our content library so that it was all of a sudden globally applicable. So that meant like removing any dollar references, removing any American phrases. Like, you know, when life hands you lemons, make lemonade is not a phrase used in most of the world. And so a lot of our content, we try to make sure our content's really relatable. So we use a lot of phrases like that and different colloquialisms, and just having to take all of that out was definitely stressful. But yeah, I think the biggest deadline I ever had was that. And I was kind of working on it alone because, like I said, our global venture is kind of a new thing. And I was really the only one in charge of that project. But I definitely had some flashbacks to like writing an essay the night before it was due or the day of and that kind of thing. So you definitely working under pressure at school kind of translates well into the workplace as well. Not that you should work up until the deadline. You should write your essays well in advance, but those hard and fast deadlines still kind of exist in the workplace, and procrastination is very real even when you're an adult in a job. As much as I thought it was going to go away.
No, it does not go away. I mean, it's always there. And those flashbacks to like late night, all night, it's there. But the most stressful deadline I ever had was, I don't know. I mean, I was told I had to write a white paper. That was literally the prospectus. And I said, what does that mean? They're like, well, just figure it out. Just do it, you know, and we need this done like in a month. Well, it took a year and it was a stressful deadline because it kept moving because the the uh, the number of people who wanted to hop in and provide edits or feedback just kept growing. And ultimately, I just it was one of those situations. There was too many cooks in the kitchen. I was like, you can't all just give me feedback. I can't get 25 people's feedback on this because it's going to suck, frankly. So what I did is I just cut above everybody and I went and I booked time with the CFO. And I said, hey, this is about a financial thing. Like, you're the CFO, you know money really well. Why don't you just give me the feedback and then I'll take it to our chief marketing officer after you, and that'll be everybody I got. And I had to get buy-in from everybody. You know, like everybody who wanted the voice, I said, I appreciate it. You have to be very diplomatic in these situations. You know, you might be angry or frustrated at times, but you always be diplomatic. So you say, I appreciate everybody's feedback. I thank you for your suggestions. Here's what's going to happen. And it's not asking for everybody's opinion on your next best course of action. It's just saying I'm the expert. I'm the owner of this project. I'm going to drive it forward this way. This is what's going to happen. If you have a problem with it, I'm happy to talk with you offline. But for the sake of the deadline and sake of the timing and getting this done and getting it up and out, this is what's happening. And people will mostly just go along with that. So stressful deadlines are going to happen. You're always going to come across them. Get creative. Don't be afraid to take charge. Again, take charge. It's a common theme, and just run with it and push it forward however you think is best. Because at the end of the day, you're closest to the project and you probably know what's best for the project.
I've only been at my job for a couple months, and luckily, the director of content, who is in charge of assigning me assignments, she does a really great job of like not putting pressure on anything. A lot of our deadlines are flexible, but there's really there's one thing that comes to mind is we had an update like on our site. We have the specific tuition costs for like specific institutions, like private 4-year public college and then like med school. So I had to research all the like statistics with that. And there's a lot more to add, but you'd think it would be so easy to find on the internet, like the average for like the average cost. It is not that easy to find. I spent a good like week researching, and it just, when you have on its own, it's not stressful, but when you have other assignments to finish and you have a timeline on those as well, the pressure keeps building up. And it was one of those things where I had to keep going back and making changes. And then finally it got to the point where there was no information that we could find on it. So the project basically just, it was one of those things where we just had to like settle on a number. We couldn't get perfect, but yeah, that was definitely one of the most stressful deadlines, only because I couldn't find the information, and I didn't want to make it look like I couldn't find it, but it just wasn't out there. But yeah, I think at iGrad they do a really good job of making deadlines flexible and the workload it's not too much. So I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you all for sharing. I think that that was a great question. Does anyone else have any questions that they'd like to bring to the group?
Jeffrey had a question in the chat.
Yeah, so Jeffrey's question was, what advice would you give to someone who is not sure what career path they would want to follow? And I see that, Will, you've started to answer this in the chat, which is awesome. Really highlighting the benefits of time being on your side, trying new things in different areas, and also the reminder that it's okay to not have everything figured out. Your plans might change, but the goal is just to make steps towards developing what you're passionate about, because you have time. And yeah, it's okay to not know right now. Thanks for answering that one, Will.
Yeah, and I mean, Sue is totally right. The career development services at USD are fantastic. Even just looking at where they are now versus they were never bad by any means when I was there, but just major respect to the work you all have done to improve it so much more over time in the last couple of years. It's fantastic. So take advantage of that resource 100,000% for sure.
And also I noticed, Will, you put in your chat that you recommended grabbing an internship, which I also highly recommend. And you said if you're interested in marketing, but that's if you're interested in anything. And one of the benefits of doing an internship is that it's not only to find the things that you do like to do, but to find out the things that you don't want to do. An internship is a small investment of time and also a lot of benefit of getting the experience, the units, the references, and all sorts of other things. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that was my experience exactly. I did an internship through the English department, and though I love the English department side of things, I didn't like the internship I had. Not that it was any problem with the internship itself or the company I was working for, but I was doing like PR, social media, that kind of thing. And I realized that, it wasn't right for me. And that kind of set me on a different path. So definitely starting to get involved in that kind of stuff earlier, like sooner rather than later, is really helpful because you can figure things out. And the faster you figure things out, kind of the better off you are, I think. Not that there's any rush, and I still am figuring things out, but it was helpful to do an internship junior year so I could kind of go in a different path senior year.
Thank you for sharing. We can keep going with questions if anyone has any, but I also wanted to draw attention to the chat. Sue from CDEV dropped a little link, and that's a survey that we really appreciate if you filled out before you leave, but feel free to stick around if you have more questions.
All right, I'll go. First of all, it's good to see you. And I was wondering, what informed your decision to go right into the workforce rather than maybe consider the next level of education or something like that, other than maybe just, I need to pay my bills?
Honestly, the opportunity presented itself, And like I said, I didn't really know what I wanted to go into. So I was like, you know what, might as well just do it and try. I mean, I know people who have tried a job and they didn't like it and they left it. And so, there's that out. But like I didn't really go into it thinking that I would, quit at any time. I went into it just wanting to try something new. And I don't know, there wasn't really much thought behind it. It was just like, you know what? I've gotten this opportunity. I'm going to see where it goes. And if it goes somewhere, great. If not, back to the drawing board. So it was just kind of that thing of being open. And yeah, and also, we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I wasn't very confident that I was going to get a job right out of college just because everything was slowed down. So I guess that was maybe another aspect to it.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I just wasn't sure. I kind of decided to go straight into the workforce rather than doing higher education because, like I said, I had that experience in college where I thought I wanted to do one field and then kind of started to experience it and realize that's not what I wanted to do. So I kind of wanted to implement a similar, routine post grad where I kind of wanted to go into what I thought I wanted to do, which is editing. And fortunately, I enjoy it and it is what I want to do. But I wanted to kind of make sure that that was the path I wanted to go down before I pursued higher education. And because I wasn't exactly sure what I would go to grad school for or what, did I want to do law school or did I want to, further my English and literature career. I think I wanted to get some work experience under my belt before I tried to decide what path I wanted to take with higher education.
It was a tough decision, and honestly, it's one I still grapple with today. And when I first came out, it was a question of I thought a lot about it. I did a lot of strategic planning around it. What's the immediate benefit of going into the workforce or pursuing a different opportunity, or doing the gap year or whatever? Or there's 8,000 things you can do after you graduate. I was very fortunate to have that way of thinking of like, I don't have to get a job right now, but I wanted to because I wanted to get my career started. I also wouldn't have been able to stay in the city. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri originally. I would have moved back home if I didn't get a job and live with my parents. So that was a big deciding factor. But here's the thing that really pushed it. I actually got accepted to the Japan Exchange and Teaching Program, and I had been a contributing author for Tech Cocktail, which was the news site I wrote for after college. I was contributing biweekly, and what happened was the same. Within 2 days of each other, I got the notice from JET that they wanted to send me to Hokkaido, northern Japan, for 2 years in a rural village to teach English, which would have been the adventure of a lifetime. I got an offer to be a full-time staff writer at Tech Cocktail 2 days later. And it was probably one of the harder decisions I've made because I worked for, gosh, I don't know, 7 months to get to that position with Tech Cocktail. It didn't just come out of nowhere, but I thought, okay, if I go do JET, it'll be fun. It'll be awesome. I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. I'll meet some cool people. It's going to be great. But what happens after those 2 years are over? How does this help advance my actual career path that I want to do? And I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I didn't actually envision myself winding up in marketing really, but I knew I wanted to write full time for a living. So I thought like if I turn down this Tech Cocktail thing, there's no telling. I graduated into like one of the worst economies in a long time too. So I was like, there's no telling whether or not I'm actually going to get another job offer in this as a staff writer anywhere. So strike while the iron's hot. I said, let's run with the staff writer gig because I don't want to spend 2 years of my life and come back and start at square one, actually square zero, because I would have had no more writing experience in my belt. I would have been taught English, which would have been very rewarding and cool, but I wouldn't have, I would not be where I am now. I wouldn't be in content marketing, I can tell you that much, because I learned about content marketing through that staff writing position. And that set me on my career trajectory to where I am today. And the question of higher education for an English degree was tough because it would have been, get an MFA in creative writing, which would be fun as well. But I'm not confident that I can write a novel, or if I write a novel, I'm not confident anybody would ever want to read it. So I decided let's run full force into the career and see where it takes you. And the cool part too is if you work with the right company, they'll pay for you to go to school if you can sell them on it. They'll let you go. I could probably within the next year, make a solid proposal to have part, not all, part of an MBA program subsidized by my company. If I could prove that it's going to offer some kind of value back to them in the long run, or you sign an agreement, like I'll stick with you for 4 years if you help me become a web developer. We had a guy at Classic who did that. He was a salesperson, and he sold them on the idea of him becoming a front-end software engineer. They paid for him to go to school for 4 years, and he's one of the most successful software engineers of the company now. But he signed a contract like, I'm gonna stay with you for 10 years. So there's a lot of ways you can work it, that if you are interested in pursuing higher education opportunities, but you're unsure of like how you're gonna pay for it or what it's gonna do to your career perspectives right out of college, you could just take a job and try to work your angle that way too. So get creative with it.
Great question, Sean. Thank you. It looks like we're coming up on our final few minutes. Does anyone have any last questions or thoughts that they'd like to share?
If there are no more questions, I just like to make a quick plug. We are definitely looking for people to contribute guest blogs to the Blueboard blog. I'll put the link in the chat here. But please feel free if you're interested. We are looking for people with some kind of experience. So if you haven't been published outside of, or if you've been published anywhere yet, we probably wouldn't be able to work with you, unfortunately. But if anybody's interested in contributing, I'd love to hear from you. Please email me. I'll send my email here. Shoot me a note. Love to talk with you. I'm also just here as a resource. If you have any other questions, always feel free to holler at me. I'll hop on a call with you or whatever I can do to help. So let me know. And I'm happy to talk with anybody who's interested in learning a little bit more about what it might mean to contribute to Blueboard's blog. So let me know.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I just wanted to say thank you, everyone. There's such a wealth of information that it's given us lots to think about for a long time. And a lot of great suggestions from everybody. And also thank you to Hannah, and thank you everyone at CareerDev for helping organize the panel. Thank you so much.